Hello and welcome everyone to the BRAVOZONE Build a Game Live workshop, or as I like to call it, the BRAVOZONE Bagel. I appreciate everyone taking their time today to show up to this Build a Game Live workshop, where today we are going to be working with our new template called Dash. You can have a bunch of different question types that are not available in our other templates, and I'm going to be excited to show you how to put this together. So without further ado, I'm going to dive in to the creation of the BRAVOZONE game Dash. So right here, we have our landing page, and you'll notice if you are a returning subscriber of ours that we have Dash right down here on the second row. When you click on Dash, it will give you a brief video you can watch, familiarize yourself with what's going on with Dash and how it's maybe different than our other templates. This also has a description here of what is going on with Dash, as well as up here, it'll let you know that it is instructor-led. Before I go in and start creating, I do want to point out one thing. Normally, I recommend people go to the question editor. The question editor is where you can build out questions and then drag and drop them over to the templates as you need to when you're creating. This process really helps with dividing up the task of creating content. And as we all know, creating content can be arduous sometimes. So the more we can streamline it and compartmentalize it so it is a smooth task, the better. I will begin by going into Dash. As I've already said, here is the description of the game. This is intended to be an instructor-led game, a high energy game. This is what we hope to be something that can really energize your presentations, really give them some oomph, and allow you to see your participants almost shouting out the answers. And maybe if a session is really exciting, you're going to see them even doing that. This is meant to be high energy, fast paced, and have some of the pressure of a timer going on. Very interactive game show-like, as you can even see in this video, that timer bar we added to this template. You can see it ticking down. We don't just have the timer at the top of the screen. We have that bar going down, which should further add some pressure to the playing of this game, which will boost, of course, your engagement. I'm going to start the creation here. As always, we have our 5 steps up at top. Once you've completed those 5 steps, you have created your game. Today's title, I'm going to title it with the Build a Game Live or Bagel moniker. And we have the option for instructor-led only in this. And we can decide if we want to make this more of an assessment and something without some of the game features, or we want it to be a little bit more fun and have some of the points and scores and things like that for people to get competitive about. Today, I'm going to build it in game mode. But if you mess around with either function, you'll see that there's slight differences between the two, but it doesn't overall change a lot of how the game is presented. Here we have our question builder. Once again, if you're familiar with how to create questions with us, this should look very familiar with our other templates. Inside the question library, using the question editor, normally is where I build out some questions. What I've gone ahead and done, I've created some questions ahead of time. What we did is we built them in a Dash template, moved them over to the library, and now they're in the library for me to drag back over. So I'm going to drag one of these questions over to show kind of how easy it is. And now we're going to dive into this question and see what makes it different here in the Dash template. So I'll double click on that. This is a fill in the blank question. We're going to be using this type here, so people will be typing in their answers into these blanks on their own devices when they're participating. To create the blanks, just like it says, you will use 3 underscores. This allows the system to recognize those are where you're going to be putting in your answers. So we have the primary answer, which is going to be listed in this green box. But what we can also do is, as it says, we can account for different spellings. So maybe, for whatever reason, I'm from part of the country or world where friendly is spelled differently. And I'm just going to put that alternate spelling in there. So now if someone enters that in, that will also be acceptable for this question. So sometimes it'll take some trial and error to figure out how many different spellings there are of what you want to include. But as you kind of get the hang of this and you deliver more and more content this way and get to know your audience a little bit, you'll know what they are more than likely going to misspell or spell differently as they go through and take your quizzes. This template does have the same ability for bookending the question with the preview and summary slides, which also have the ability to upload media and audio. Here I have even a little bit of text editing there with the bold there. That might or might not be a clue to the next actual question. And I don't have a summary slide there, but if I wanted to add something, it would be added as simple as typing in what I want to add. So summary slide. And then if I wanted to add media, I could click here. And this will be a review for some of you, but I just want to show how quick and easy this is. I'm going to click on an image I've pre-saved onto my computer. It's going to upload. And now for my summary slide, I've got my content and my picture right there. Finally, I can go over to my settings, and some of this will look different for those of you that have been around for a little bit. I can choose to accept case-sensitive answers. If that matters, maybe I want friendliness to be capitalized, the first letter. I can make that a thing, so it has to actually reflect that. I can require the answers to be in a certain order. For example, if it's very important that someone gets these not only correct, but the right order of which they put them. I can allow partial credit, and I can even disable the timer if I want. You'll also notice with our timer settings, we have a little bit more variety of the settings in the timer. This accounts for people having to fill in the blank. Maybe some people are less skilled with typing on a keyboard or using their phone or smart device to enter answers. And we definitely want to account for that. We want them to feel the pressure and the gamified way of learning this, but we also don't want them to feel frustrated and kind of get disengaged. So the timer length is going to be a very important thing for not only the question you pick, but for your audience. I've selected that the points will reduce as time goes down. And I've also selected this is something else. When we have predictive text enabled, it will show word suggestions as you type in various responses or as your participants do. This is also something you'll want to play around with when you get your hands onto Dash and see if it works for your environment or your type of template. Much like our other templates, you can show the percentages at the end, so you know how your participants responded. And you can even allow to see the participants as they submit their answers, can see what others have done. We have kind of a global timer going here where you can adjust that for all the questions, or if we go back to the question, we can adjust the timer just for this question itself. So there's two different ways for you to adjust the timer. We wanted to make sure that was upfront and easy to find. We felt that when we did the play test of this template, the timing factor and having to quick put in your answers was a key component of the fun that was involved with this template. And of course, being engaged will help to learn and retain the information. So I'm going to save this. I made a small change like I showed you to the summary just to illustrate a little bit about adding the summary slide. So I've got that question in here. It's got the question type and this little symbol, as well as that I have a preview and summary slide. If you haven't noticed that before in our templates, we try to give you a heads up on what is contained within that question. I'm going to drag over another question here. This is a different type of question. I want to show you this one. This is a list question. And right here, we have a little description on what the list question is. You can show the order is not important, but you just want people to list out the words or the answers. So I've even put in here my question. Sometimes I've been known to not do this, so I wanted to make sure I did that with this one, that there is in no particular order. And this is one that actually I believe Erin has built out for me. So I apologize for taking credit for building this. She's the one that remembered to put in no particular order. I probably would have actually forgotten that. The timer's been adjusted because there is 5 different things to fill out here. So it's not the standard 60-second timer. We have the information there or the graphic added there, add a little bit more interest. And of course, we have the preview slide where we talk about this information. Then we're going to have it in the question. And there isn't a summary slide for this one that's been added. And the settings are going to be much the same that we saw on the previous question. So I've got my second question added over, a different type. It's the list question. I'm going to drag these other 2 over. Now you'll notice this one has actually numbers right next to it. So we're going to go into this one. This is sequence. This is where you want people to list out answers, but the order is actually important. So right here, for this particular question, I'm dealing with the order of steps for CPR. So of course, the order is going to matter on this. And I just want to illustrate this for different types of jobs or training you might do. This is not something where maybe I want to have multiple part answers here. It was mainly just to illustrate the showing of different steps. Once again, in the settings, we can mess around with the same things that we showed for the other questions. And we can even allow for partial credit submissions, which I think will be important as you experience Dash, so that people will still feel engaged with the content, even if they don't get everything absolutely correct. So I've got the different question types here. If I want to add a question, if you're not familiar with that process, I can go in here and select what type of question I want. We've seen fill in the blank, list, and sequence, but you also have the ability to do multiple choice and just a plain slide. So I'm going to add a plain slide here. I'm going to select my media, which I have previously downloaded. We're going to put a rhino's rear end. And trust me, this will make sense in a little bit. I have a question in mind here. The question, or it's going to be a slide, I'm just going to make the statement that it is very important to end a presentation with a call to action. And I have the rhino's rear end on there to kind of highlight the end there. I know I'm being a little goofy or silly, but that's the point. So I just had a slide there, informational. You can put these throughout your presentation, so it's just not the same question, maybe a preview or a summary question, and you can vary up the format, which will increase the interest. I don't need a preview or summary for this. I just wanted to follow up my presentation there with this last little statement, show you that you could add a slide into here. And again, that type is noted right here. If you haven't used this function up here, download yet, I do want to draw your attention to that. Here, you can download your questions and answers in one of these two file formats and have someone else look over what you've written. Maybe you're not the best at grammar or spelling, or maybe you aren't a content expert, but you're still creating this quiz. In that case, it would be a good idea to have someone else take a look at what you've written. That is what you can do with this button. I'm going to move on to the graphics. Here, we've got some basic graphics you can choose from for the background. Or you can upload an image of your own to that if you would like, or even have it be blank with no image. We do have the ability to mess around with the background color or upload a custom logo to go with your game. We have the font style you can mess with, and you can customize an intro and closing. I'm going to customize the closing because I don't believe I've done that in one of these sessions or for a while. And I'm going to put thank you for playing. And to do that, I'm going to add another little bit of media. I'm going to upload a GIF that I already have on my hard drive. And it is in the public domain in case anyone is wondering. I found this one earlier today on, I believe, the Smithsonian's upload of things in the Internet Archive. And then we can go to the fourth and almost final slide. This is the mode that people will be playing along with. I can choose teams or individuals. For today, I'm going to choose individuals. Here again is the timer. I'm not going to mess around with this because I have it set the way I want for each question. I can allow for a round bonus for the first correct response, which I will have there. This is another way to have your scores spread out a little bit. So the faster the answer, the more chance that person has of getting the bonus. And you can even select if you want the bonus. After a certain amount of time has passed with some of the questions, it will even put in the first letter hint. I'm going to enable that on these questions, which again prevents some frustration from some of your participants. All I'm going to have selected here is name, and I'm not going to mess around with the custom game text, which lets me change things like the wording in there for next slide or where you see the word points. You can change what those words are listed as. Finally, on publish, I can decide to show it with the other builders in my organization if I'd like, or I can even decide if they have permission to edit it. With the sign in versus no sign in required, this will allow me to either let people type in whatever they want when they're signing in, or if I'm tracking information for particular students or participants over the long haul, I might want sign in required so I can track how they do over a period of time. Last but not least, I'm going to click publish. Here I have my preview link, which you maybe, if you were paying attention, saw earlier. Here you can preview what you have built. And here it is just going to list the preview slides, the questions, the answers, things like that. so you can give it one last go over in a different format. But I am going to be the presenter here, and I'm going to go through presenting this little dash template that I've created here today. And I invite all of you to grab out your smart devices, your cell phones, and play along here with me in just another couple screens. So as a presenter, I have a last minute screen here that I get to see where I can decide if maybe I want to do teams at the last minute versus individuals, or vice versa. Maybe I want to turn anonymous mode on. And here's where I can select to play default sounds. When I've selected all that, I can start and begin. Here we have the beginning dash graphic. And remember, I did not customize the introduction screen. At the bottom throughout the presentation, you have the link and ID for everyone to log into if they so desire, or they can wait for this QR code. So I invite anyone that's interested to see what this looks like on their smart device or computer or laptop, their tablet. Feel free to log in either using the URL and the ID or by scanning the QR code. I'll give it a couple minutes and you can see and experience what this looks like both from my screen and on your own screen as a participant. All right, if anyone else would like to join, remember the link is at the bottom as well as the ID. I'm going to click Start Session. We've got round one beginning. All right, hands on your buzzers, everyone, or thumbs at the ready, I guess, or fingers if you're on a keyboard. Having a positive attitude is important in customer service. Demonstrating that attitude with a smile is a first step to a great interaction. Here we've got the timer running at the top. Most businesses that interact with the general public want their employees to blank, to be blank, and to be blank to their guest customers. Feel free to wait and see if the first letters pop up if you need a clue for anything, but I do think I had a clue on the previous slide, on the preview slide, for one of these answers at least. There we go. We've got some of the hints there. I'm going to collapse this leaderboard. We're seeing the blank fill in over here, or the little register here that shows who we're waiting on as well as who's already answered. So as a presenter, you know that you're getting there, or maybe everyone's already done and you can end the timer early. Okay, there we go. We have a fully green bar. We have the answers there in the blanks. And this is where I showed the summary slide. Nothing too fancy there, just wanted to show the input of that. Now we're on to round two. Great customer care is the cornerstone of any good business. Here are 5 key principles: respect, patience, personalization, empathy, and responsiveness. Now remember, this is a list question, so the order does not matter for this question. Customer service training should include these 5 principles in no particular order. And I know I'm going through this maybe a little bit faster than you would if you were actually teaching this topic. I really just wanted to illustrate that you can have things like on a previous slide, or maybe just have a slide in general, and you can talk about things and then pepper in a question throughout. And you can even do this repeatedly if you want to test how people are getting through your answers in your material. This is a good way to do kind of continual checks. Also to keep people on their toes if you feel like you're getting the 1,000-yard stare. And once we get to be about halfway, I think the hint was turned. There we go. So now we've got the first letter listed for each blank. And I hope some of you that are still answering, or maybe even those that have answered, that timer up top with that bar decreasing, I hope that's adding a more fun element to this template than maybe just a timer clicking down. We've had some very positive responses to that. And when I've played, I can feel that timer going down in the corner of my eye. And that really makes me sweat, so to speak, when I'm trying to get my answers in. All right, so we've got the answers there, which were shown on the previous slide. Round 3. CPR is an important life-saving technique. If you're not trained or confident in your ability to perform CPR, you can still do 30 chest compressions after calling 911, and then repeat the compressions. So here we have a question where the order matters. What are the steps to performing CPR if you were trained. You're going to notice this is a little bit different as well from the list question. In the sequence question, you should have the drop down to be able to select from. While you're answering, I do want to point out that for this question, since there is 7 things to list or show, I made a choice to not have a graphic here. This is another element of template or game design you need to be aware of, along with, like I mentioned, the in no particular order that Erin put in when she designed the question we saw a little bit earlier. Be aware of your audience and the real estate on their screen when you're designing questions, so you're not jamming as much as possible into a screen. You're making it very comfortable for the eyes when you don't do that. Now I see everyone has answered. I can stop the timer right now. And there we have the correct order. Of course, I didn't run this by, I guess, someone else in my organization because I don't have a space there. But if I hover over this, I can even see the percentage is correct. And if I need to address something like the 20% correct, I can do so, which is very handy for me as an instructor. The final question round, I believe, is where we're at. Using games as icebreakers to break up long presentations with micro games as reviews, or in many other unique ways, will help your participants offset their boredom and reinforce their learning. Notice the words that are a little bit more bold there. What are the top 2 most important reasons to include games in your presentation and training? And going along with my theme of the previous question, I again wanted to draw your attention to this, that this is still gamification. This is still using micro games. I just had 4 questions here, and participants in the middle of a training are energized. They're looking at their phones in a beneficial way, and they're earning points, which we'll take a look at in just a moment. And this can really help, even in small doses throughout a presentation, to boost the retention of information. It doesn't have to be fancy. You don't need big, long videos. You can really kind of boost anything with just a few questions here or there. The other thing I do want to bring up is it's really handy to be able to create these questions ahead of time and drag and drop them over. And you can mess around with adding GIFs or JPEGs or YouTube videos later on. The important part is that you're getting your questions entered in. So there we've got our questions answered there. I've got the statement here of the summary slide. Some of our subscribers use our templates and newsletters to supplement procedure manuals on their websites, embedded in other presentation programs, and a variety of other ways besides the normal reviews, tests, and assessments. I really want to challenge you that are using our subscription. Find a variety of ways to use this, not just as a summary at the end of a presentation. Your participants will thank you, and you as a presenter, I feel like will be a lot more energized when it has a lot more ways that you're using this in your training. Finally, we've got the summary slide here, no question here. It's very important to end a presentation with a call to action. My call to action to all of you on the presentation here today is to try Dash for yourselves, build some questions, get out there, deliver it in front of people, and see the energy levels really perk up in your presentations and training. That is my call to action for all of you here today. Finally, we have the closing. I've got my gift there. Take a look at the participants. Good job, LE. And if we want, we can even take a look at the most challenging rounds. We can see as an instructor what people had the most trouble with, and we can address that at the end of the presentation. So that is running through a build of Dash. A call to action for everyone here today. I really appreciate you attending this, and I hope that it was valuable for you. I challenge you to go out and use Dash and see how it can really improve your trainings. And as always, please reach out to me if you have questions about implementing any of our templates, or if you would like to, if you're not currently a subscriber, like to see what that looks like.